Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Thank you so much for being here. It is an absolute pleasure to have one of my favorite people in the world, Luke Hohmann, here as a guest. I've been following him since I came here to Silicon Valley, and he's such a special person. Luke, thank you so much for being here with us today.
And I get to reciprocate. I'm very honored to be here. And you are one of my favorite people in Silicon Valley. I sometimes say to friends that you have these like little gravity wells of goodness that good people fall into. And we found each other. We kind of rolled into each other's goodness gravity well. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Let's start with you. And
Okay.
you've done so many things. And I have your game here too. You've just done so many things. Why don't you tell us, how did you get to be here?
Sure. One of the things I was able to do was I was able to work years ago with the noted organizational behaviorist Carl Weick, and he talks about careers as retrospective sense making, meaning how we got here is a series of steps that made sense at the time, and then we make further stories and sense of them. But the long story short is I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I moved to Michigan and I started working for EDS, and I was also figure skating at the time. So I was working part-time and skating as an athlete full-time. Eventually, my career at Electronic Data Systems, which was eventually acquired by Hewlett Packard, was such that I moved to Dallas. And then just before the dot bomb took off, I moved to Silicon Valley in 1996, and I've stayed here ever since. I've been a part of venture-backed startups. I've had, one exit where I was, it was a minor exit in the sense of it was an acquisition, and I was a member of the executive team, so we did okay. I started my own firm. I've started my own consulting firm. I've split the consulting firm, and I had an enterprise software company that I built from scratch without outside investment and sold that. And that was a nice exit. And now I'm back both consulting and building some software. Along the way, I've written 5 books, and you've written many books. And so book writing to me is a hobby that is designed to share wisdom and help others succeed. And we all need hobbies. Some people, they do various things. We write books. And I also design games both for fun and for corporate use in the vein of serious games. And so I've launched a new game that we can talk about. I've launched some software companies, and I'm an investor. So for those of you who are listening, a plug for Alicia. She runs a very disciplined and wonderful Wealthing.club, and also a nascent and growing and important venture capital firm and investment firm. And so I also collaborate professionally with Alicia on investments that look very promising. And so that's always exciting, is to support further entrepreneurs in their journey as they build out their products and services.
And you also did the budgeting organization for schools. That was fantastic. We use it at my house for me and my kids. I don't know if a lot of you know that I was a single mom for a long period of time. And so we needed to budget amongst ourselves. And it was great to teach people mathematics with that, negotiations, law of compassion, and a little bit of assertiveness at the same time. So I fell in love with your proposition of teaching collaborative budgeting at school. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about that? Because maybe some people will come up with other ideas and apply that into their communities.
That would really be great. So years ago, I wrote a book called Innovation Games, Creating Breakthrough Products Through Collaborative Play. And we'll put a link in the show notes. And in that book, I describe a market research technique called buy a feature, where as a product company, you engage with your customers and you literally list future features for sale in a virtual economy, in a virtual market, and you let customers buy the features that they want you to build. And it's a form of market research called preference modeling. So we're understanding preferences of customers. Well, over a decade ago, I was on an airplane with Kim Walesky from, not Kim Walesky, I'm blanking on her name, but I was on a plane with the head of economic development for the city of San Jose, and she was talking about how San Jose needed to get feedback from citizens on the budget. So we adapted that game for philanthropic use with citizens in San Jose. And then I just started pushing the envelope of where we could apply the idea of collaborative budgeting, participatory budgeting in the context of philanthropy and in the public sector. And we started bringing this to schools. Alicia, one of the things that we found along the way is that participatory budgeting is endorsed by the United Nations. And
Wow.
the United Nations even talked about using it in schools in certain countries. So we thought, why not try that in America? And I started a company called First Root that was going to bring participatory budgeting into schools. And it was a B Corp. So it was a certified benefit corporation because we had a public mission to teach financial literacy, something that you know a lot about, you've written books about, something that you promoted, and civic engagement. How do we get kids to involve themselves in government and decision making? The unfortunate part of First Root is that I launched it the same month pretty much that COVID hit. So I launched First Root in early 2020 and then COVID hit. And while we raised a little bit of money, we just didn't have enough money to outlast the schools needing to focus, and they should focus on what was happening with COVID. So in the spirit of great ideas can come back and they manifest in different ways as technology improves and technology gives us more options, we hope, by sharing this story, Alicia and I, we talked before the podcast, by sharing the story, we hope that other people may think about in the broadest sense, what is the work that you're doing in your corporate job that may be applicable in schools for kids and help kids grow and learn in a time of very rapid dynamic change with AI? What are the plans that kids are going to need? What are the skills that they're going to need? And also, how can you be of service to others in your community? Because we're losing a sense of community and we're losing a sense of civic engagement. So we want to, challenge people. I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but the things that I'm an expert in, I can find a way to express that expertise that helps kids and schools in the community. And we think that that's a possibility. And we'd love for people to consider that in their own work. How do we help other people?
I think that's fantastic. And it also talks about the alignment that we have in our values, which I think is really interesting, especially both being in Silicon Valley, not from Silicon Valley, both having been extremely successful with running companies and creating wealth for ourselves as well with others. And I think one of the things that people forget is that we cannot do this without supporting others. I mean, we could, it's just not as fun. But in these days where so much division, where there's so much pressure about me against you, having the conversation about how we can all benefit from our activities is essential. And I think this is a very, very important message that I would like to keep alive, especially nowadays. I mean, I've always lived that way, but now it seems more and more important. I found that the school system and the educational system is very punitive to people that want to enjoy learning. I've been an
Yes.
academic for many, many years, and the grading system has shifted from certifying that you know something to favoring competition at any price, and that doesn't lead to collaboration. So I that's one of the reasons that I really, really like First Fruits, because we need a community, and we're better if nobody's suffering in our community, and that is not being from the left or the right. It's just a humanitarian principle. So I really applaud you for that.
Yeah,
And
and there's deeper principles that you're bringing forth. I mean, one of the challenges, people listen to your podcast from around the world, and we have both broad and big networks. We live in a very rare part of the world where there's, candidly, there's a lot of wealth concentrated in Silicon Valley. There are a lot of people who've become wealthy through hard work. I don't want to take away the work from anyone that they've done, but there's also a lot of people who've created wealth in a sense by being lucky. Like I joined NVIDIA 4 years ago, and I'm happy that they're wealthy because NVIDIA is grown and, again, hard work should be rewarded. But what we want to make sure is that we are aware of our position in the world in the sense of we do work in collaboration with other people, and it's extremely rare that someone can claim that they've had success without the benefit or help from others, and finding ways to pay it forward. And it could be for as something as simple as mentoring a young person, or in your current corporate job, offering an internship to someone coming out of school, or creating, there's so many ways to create opportunities for others if you're open to the possibility and reflective on your own career. When I sometimes go for a walk that I call my gratitude walk. And what
Mhm.
I focus on a gratitude walk is all of the people who helped me in my career that I feel grateful for. And I kind of just say thank you mentally. And it reminds me that I want to create opportunities for other people.
Wow, that is such a great reminder, both because gratitude works well with us, but also because it creates this completely different type of energy. So thank you for reminding that. Thank you for reminding us that. I spoke recently to a CEO coach in Switzerland, in Basel, and he was telling me that they've started doing gratitude walks. They're a whole bunch
Oh,
of guys. They're all these very serious CEOs, whole bunch of guys, and they said, we realized there was something missing in our lives, and we didn't know how to communicate with that. And what they do is that they go for gratitude walks on their own, and they take pictures. They send each other pictures, and it's just that reminder that I am grateful. I want to share my feeling of gratitude with somebody else. It is so important in today's world that is there's so much stress and hate and division, and I'm right and you're wrong. We don't listen to understand. We listen to judge the conversation. We listen to say, that's, I agree, I disagree. So it's just that kindness and that sense of, just enjoying being, that's so important. But I want to take it to your recent game.
yes, no, the most recent game, the most recent way to share gratitude and positive energy in the world.
That is nosy.
That is nosy. And
It,
for the listeners, it's KNOWSY.game. So www.nosy.game. And again, we'll put a link in the show notes.
yeah. So how did you come up with that idea?
Well, the original idea came from when my kids, and I have 4 kids, Alicia and I are blessed with children and we love our children dearly. And when my kids were starting to become of age where they were joining social media, they noticed that my LinkedIn account has thousands of connections. And they came to me and they're like, Dad, you must be really important and influential. You've got, tens of thousands of connections and everyone knows you. And I'm like, well, first, LinkedIn has millions and millions of people on it. So it's a small subset. But second, those are my job, right? My job is to be well known as a book author and as a consultant. And they're like, well, you have thousands of friends. And I said, well, technically I don't, right? I don't have 29,000 friends. I have 29,000 connections, and I care about my connections, but my friends are different. Friends are people that you know intimately, that you spend time with, and you don't have, 1,000 friends that are that level of intimacy. You have a smaller number. It's just partly the law of numbers and human relationships. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to design an experience that helped my kids understood that friendship is about knowing and caring about other people's opinion. It's not, what is my favorite flavor of ice cream when I go get ice cream with my friends, but what is my friend's favorite flavor of ice cream? Or when we go get pizza, it's not how do I make sure that I get what I want on my pizza? It's how do we get what we want on the pizza that we're going to share as a group of friends. And so I designed a very, very simple game with very simple mechanics that scales really well. It's a lot of fun to play, and it lets people, and the way I kind of say it is you win the game when you're a better friend. You win the game when you know and you care and you have empathy about other people.
And you also have fun playing
And
it.
you have fun. You have fun doing
Yeah.
it. Because if it's not fun, it's not going to get played.
So we played that recently in a group, and I changed the rules, which
Yeah,
I'm known for changing rules all the time.
which is brilliant.
And yeah, it was really funny. And my son was here, and my sister was playing, and another friend of ours was playing. My mom was here, and we were all playing in a different way. And it was really interesting because my son's observation was that he could see how I view life and how my sister views life in a different way, just because our approach to the game, where I was more, okay, I know these, and let's do the numbers. And my sister was like, wait, why did you choose these? Why did you? So she wanted to dive deep, and she's more artistic than I am, and I'm more mathematical. So it's like, okay, let's do the numbers. And she's like, no, 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 let's talk about what it means. If you, so she extended the game, and I wanted to get as many cards as possible. And so that was really interesting, because not only you know about the other person, but you also know how the other person processes information and how they are happier and more comfortable. And friendship is not only knowing the other person, but it's also doing the extra to make sure that they feel loved, cared for, and respected in their choices.
Right. And the game reveals things that even for friends that you've known for a long time is surprising. I recently played nosy with my friend Brad, and we went out to lunch, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. So we went out to lunch and we played nosy. And the game mechanics are you pick a topic card, and then in the topic card, there's 5 items, and you rank order them in order of your preferences. And then I see if I can guess your preferences. And if I guess well, then I know you as a person better. And if I don't guess well, we get a chance to talk about it. So let me give you a little color commentary on my friend Brad. He is a musician and a patent attorney, and he's a very good musician. Like he has a home studio. He plays the piano, he plays the drums, he plays the guitar, and he just loves his music. And we know that he loves jazz because my wife loves jazz. And when we've gone on double dates, my wife and him will talk about music. So he picked the music genre, the music card, and his number one item was jazz. And I guessed it. So I got the points for, but then I realized I had no idea what his second or third favorite music genre was. And I figured because he has kids and he's always kind of a hip guy, he's got, the kids the same age, but he's kind of one of those really kind of hip people. I thought it would be like hip hop or R&B. And his second favorite card of music was country.
Oh,
And I would have never guessed that Brad would like country. And then he went into this story about how he fell in love with country music because he was driving, and they have stories, and the songs are funny, and sometimes they're serious, but they, tell stories often in different ways. And I just learned this lovely tidbit about my friend Brad. And now I ended up playing a game that helped us feel closer to each other. And it's a terrific game for like a house party. Like
Yeah,
we know that people are happier when they have friends over for a house party, but then the question is, what do I do? And there are other games you can play, but then they're skill based or they're competitive. And nosy doesn't require you to draw or things like that. And it doesn't require you to be competitive. It's about understanding and it's just fun.
it is fun. It is a lot of fun. So thank you for making that game too. We'll put in the credit here. I want to get back into the person.
Yeah.
And there's a question I always ask. There's three or four, but this is one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
And if you were to write a letter to yourself when you were 20 or 30 years younger, what is the one thing that you would tell yourself that you didn't know that you know now?
Yeah.
You
These kind
start
of
with Dear Luke.
Yeah, no. So I'm writing the letter when I'm 20 and I want it to be opened when I'm 50, or is it I'm writing the letter when I'm 50 and I want to open it when I'm 20?
You write well, I don't know, at this age, you write a letter to Luke when
The
Luke,
younger one.
the younger one, telling, hey, this is what I learned that I didn't know.
Right. And I love these time travel letters questions because I actually was asked it one other time and I have a dual answer. Um, so my first answer is I would write, don't change any of the choices you've made. Your life is going to unfold the way it should, and you'll be happy with how it turns out, no matter what choices you make, because that's who you are. Like I've learned to be happy with the choices I make. That being said, if I had to give myself advice now that I would want to receive when I was younger, is truly allow yourself to not be judged economically by the standards of other people. When you get into, because I grew up very, very poor, and you also have struggled at times in your life with economics, meaning you haven't been as wealthy as other times, and we've
Oh,
all
I came here
struggled.
with $600, so I know
Yeah,
all about it. Yeah.
right. And so it's okay. It's okay to be poor. You don't want to be ashamed, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to get into comparisons of wealth, especially in a place like Silicon Valley, because there's someone who's always richer than you, who always has a nicer house or a nicer car. And I grew up so poor that initially I was allowing myself to be judged in a comparative way on wealth. And you can't win a comparative wealth game because someone's always going to be richer and someone's always going to be, more wealthy. And what you really need to learn how to do is to be comfortable with living within your means and realizing that wealth as, the number is not the means of happiness, nor is it the measure of success. And that would be the advice I would give myself is, you'll be fine, right? You're going to be fine economically, and you'll get there faster if you stop worrying about what other people think and feel about how much you own or the car you drive.
Wow. Especially in Silicon Valley.
And it's hard in Silicon Valley, right? I mean, we have kids in high schools driving cars that are nicer than what I drive, and I don't care, right? But do you know what I mean? But people do.
Well, just for the benefit of the audience, I don't think people in Silicon Valley are very showy.
No, many times they're not.
I just think there's a lot of money and people don't realize that they can be showy because just people are very relaxed here, I think,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
people that I know, I think. And it's great because there's a lot of venture capital and angel investing, and I think that it's a great profession or professional activity because you're giving your money and your help to another person that you don't know because you
Well,
want
I
to
think
help
that's
them.
the undercurrent. And so I
Yeah.
talked about the negative side of wealth. And let me build on what Alicia said to everyone listening. when she talks about the showy side of wealth, I think she is correct. I don't think you see a lot of ostentatious displays of wealth in Silicon
Mhm.
Valley. I'm thinking when I was talking about that expression, it was more about self-judgment.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
people self-judge themselves a lot, and when you really talk to them, the root of the self-judgment is often economic. And and I also think that one of the nice parts about Silicon Valley is this great community of people who do help each other through angel investing and advice giving and meetups and other things. But you still have a lot of people with angst that's private because they're judging themselves. And I think it's really, for me, the letter was about self-judgment. The idea that I'm judging myself and I'm thinking less of myself because I don't have as much money as other people. That's the advice I would give about how to think about wealth as a person who's maturing in their life.
I think that's a great observation. I grew up socially, so wealth didn't mean anything to us because we had a country that provided for that. And in other countries where I live, there has been the amount of money that you have is secondary to your well-being, but definitely it's not the case here. But I
Yeah.
do think that wealth has its space. The name of my company is Wealth Thing, because I think we should all contribute to creating wealth, which is not becoming rich. But that's another topic. That is another topic. I want to go back to you because you're the guest. What makes you get up full of energy in the morning?
Oh, what makes you get up full of energy in the morning? Man, sometimes it's hard to sleep when you have so much possibility. I love people and I love our world. I love technology. I'm a techno-optimist. So I don't believe that technology is trending us towards doom and gloom. I think there are certain things that we need to be cautious about. I think we need to be more cautious about social media and the mental health harm it can create in young people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need, and we learned this in Saturday morning cartoons, and we regulated the cartoons of decades ago. We learned this about food, and we regulated sugared cereals and other advertising. We learned this about tobacco. We learned this about certain things. So I think that we're still learning about the good and the bad of social media, and I think that we should be cautious. But I'm a techno optimist. I believe that we have inadvertently created certain technological problems in our environment, some through software, some through hardware, some through, plastics or pollution and things like that. But I'm also a big believer that people are resilient and we're starting to put money and effort and emphasis on values that pass through the generation. So like my youngest child, uh, Dan or Danella, she is conscious at a younger age than I was about the kinds of shampoos and soaps she uses. And she's like, Dad, look, I find these soaps that are organic and are non-harmful that don't cost any more than the heavily branded, heavily scented, heavily, full of chemical soaps.
Yeah.
So from her perspective, living life with less packaging or living life a certain way is also about managing her within her budget, but it's also about being thoughtful and conscious about the choices she's making. And so I think of all of that as part of a techno-optimist's point of view. And that's what gets me excited because I think you read good stuff that's happening and you want to be part of that positive energy. You want to keep going and make those contributions.
That's great. And this is a great place to be. Yeah.
And
And
so I
thank you.
get to turn that one around for the listeners. You have just as much energy as anyone I've ever known, myself included. What gets you out of bed and keeps you so excited about things?
Oh, for me, oh, nobody has asked me
Yeah.
that question. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I died when I was 13, but I didn't die completely. So I got back 4 days later, and I'm just so happy to be alive. And I wake up every single morning. I wake up saying, I'm breathing. Oh my gosh, I have another day. I can't
Yeah.
believe I have another day to live, and I've always lived my life full, and I'm incurable optimist. I I pinch myself every day for the fortune that I have, um, of being alive first, and of being where I am, and yeah,
So
I just have a
let's
great.
pull on that word together as a friend because we have a shared sense of gratitude, but you know, and for the listeners, Alicia and I have never talked about this, so this is part of our own values surfacing. But I chose to be an optimist when I was in high school. When my dad died when I was very young, I was 4 years old when my dad died. My mom raised six kids on her own, so we were not, we were poor, and that's okay. But I remember in high school, something kind of not great happened in my life. We don't need to go into the details, but I self-realized the ancient wisdom and the ancient wisdom of we don't control our events, we control our reactions to events. And I kind of self-realized that. And I chose a different reaction than people were expecting. And I chose to be optimistic. And I really do believe that optimism is a choice of framing. And you made the choice to be optimistic. And going back to our invitation to listeners, I'd love for listeners to consider choosing to be optimistic about the future, choosing to be optimistic about what's coming, because it's worthy of being optimistic. It's worthy about being excited about the future. It is exciting.
I think it's exciting, and I think but also I think it's better for us ourselves, and we're better people. I just don't I just don't know. I think happiness is a choice. I think
Yeah,
success is a choice. I think you choose to be successful, and then you act upon it. And what you say, it's in entrepreneurial literature, is called internal locus of control. So people who are entrepreneurs tend to believe that they choose their destiny, not because of what was given to them, but with what they do with it.
that's
So,
right.
yeah, so I remember talking to a psychologist who studied entrepreneurs, oh my gosh, over 30 years ago, Robert Barone at RPI, I think he was. He was in New York. But he was telling me, we are not always born with the same colors. What we paint with that is up to us.
Yeah,
And I really like that because yes, I mean, I'm very fortunate about my circumstances, but I might choose to think I'm not very fortunate about my circumstances. That's completely irrelevant. What I do with that is within my control.
that's right. And I also would highlight the idea that we are all creative. All humans are creative. Now we have different kinds of creativity and we express it in different ways, but all of us have intrinsic value. All of us have creativity. All of us can make contributions, some more than others, some in different ways. But this notion of the internal locus of control and these choices that we make, I'm absolutely a believer of those things. And for our listeners, if you've never reflected on this, it is worthy of you reflecting. Where do you stand? Do I want to be happy? Do I choose to be happy? Marriage, I've been married now for 26 years, and my wife and I joke it's still a choice, right? How do I want to choose to live my life? Do I want to choose to live my life that perpetuates marriage? Or do I want to choose to live my life that may not perpetuate marriage? And I got to make a connection that's fun to the beginning, Alicia. This is actually part of game theory. There's a book by William Carse called Finite and Infinite Games. And a finite game has a winner and a loser, and typically a time horizon like tennis and golf and football and soccer. These are all finite games, Monopoly, board games. Infinite game An infinite game is a game you play to perpetuate play, meaning I want to keep doing this game. So life itself is an infinite game because we play the game of life because we want to keep playing. We play the game of marriage, and as long as we want to keep playing the game, we're going to choose moves in the game of marriage or parenthood. If I want to be a good parent, I'm going to choose moves that try and be the best parent I can, or the best boss I can, or the best CEO I can. Do I want a company that's going to be sustained? Well, I'm going to make certain choices that are not extractive, that are wealth creating,
Yeah.
but not wealth creating in a way that's extractive.
Yeah. Yeah. You're more intentional. You remind me of my best friend growing up, Mila Bekine. She was around 42, 43 years older than me. I was a little child. And she lived across the street, very eccentric, very, very eccentric woman from the Czech Republic. She talked to insects. She had a moth car. Car was shaped like a moth in the little town where I grew up. And she told me when I was actually in college, she told me, the only thing you have to do is die. All the rest you do because you want to. So that sense of having a choice of how I use this gift that I have, that is life, and be intentional about it, is it's part of a not so secret sauce. It is it's a privilege to be able to see you. It's a privilege. I lost my sight a few years ago, and now I see you. Now it's even worse because now I could see all the wrinkles too, and I could see, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I have to put makeup because I look horrible. But
My mom
it,
would never let us call them wrinkles. She called them love lines or laugh lines.
that's okay. I call it wrinkles.
Yeah.
And gray hair too, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
the gray hair, yeah, we don't mind.
It's okay. I still have hair, and if I don't have hair, I don't have hair. But it's that thing about everybody that is able to listen to this podcast is in a privileged
Oh,
situation.
yeah. Yes.
Has access to the technology, has access to energy, has access to so many things, and we're so privileged to be doing this and talk about the challenges that life throws at you, and what can you do?
Yeah, what can you do when life throws challenges at you? Like when I was young and my mom was an elementary school teacher, she became knowledgeable about how children deal with bereavement and grief and loss, partly because, her own children lost their father and she lost her partner at a young age, for us, and a young age for her. I mean, she's a young woman and she's raising kids on her own. And so I think that the first thing is you allow yourself to go through the normal stages of grief and mourning. When life throws you a bad hand in the game of cards that life plays with you, you're gonna look at it and it's okay to say, man, this stinks, right? My car got in an accident. This just stinks, right? Now, it may have happened for any reason or no reason at all. And looking for reasons can drive you, to think about the wrong things. If you try to have a reason for everything, sometimes there is no reason. We don't know how quantum physics works, right? There's just, it happened. Um, you know, but again, and then you move from this stinks into kind of like, well, what's like The Martian? I'm an engineer, you're an engineer and a mathematician. We move into this more analytic space, like work the problem, right? What's the
Yeah.
problem? Work the problem. But you also want to say, like, how do I emotionally respond to this? And then you start to just build out your reservoir of optimism, your reservoir of how am I going to find this and make this thing better, happier, more consistent, et cetera. All of that matters, if you will.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes there's no other thing but to sit down and sulk it and cry and say, I'm
Yeah.
bad, and that's part of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes a good cry. I mean, we now know that tears and in emotional tears are different than happy tears, and they've got different chemical compositions. And frankly, sometimes a good cry is what you need. And sometimes what you need is just a walk outside. Go
Yeah.
be with nature. Try to get outside. There's a whole, but do something. Like the worst thing you can do is just sit around and mope.
No,
Like, do
that's true. But
something.
also you get the endorphins when you're moving. And that's one thing
Yeah.
that I noticed when my child was going through depression is I realized that jumping disrupts the neurons that are locked in.
Yeah.
And it was by serendipity. Yeah, it's, I think I am going to call this episode the positive podcast with Luke.
I love it.
Because, life is not going to change. Your colors are not going to change, but whatever you make out of it, it's going to make a difference. And most importantly for you, but also for those around you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the change that it makes has ripple effects that you don't know how people pay it forward. But when you're positive and you're kind, when you're filled with gratitude, other people detect that energy. I'm convinced of it. Like, I don't want to be overly spiritual. And I know that people believe and express a lot of different religions, which is fantastic. What we want, though, is people to realize that who you're being is noticed by other people, and you can draw more people in, you can be happier, and that gets shared.
Yes, it does. And you make an impact in the world. Luke, thank you so much for being here with us. You have the last words, and then the ball is in your court.
Oh, I just gonna say thank you so much for inviting me to share this time with a dear friend. For the listeners, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because obviously, if you can see us, we're smiling and laughing and then loving this. And I do hope that you challenge yourselves to find a way to be optimistic and to find a way to be filled with gratitude and to create opportunities for others.
Luke, thanks, Emil.
Thank you.
So thank you again for listening, for being here. If you see this great image, is because Aaron Gittin went through the trouble of suggesting a new camera, new lights. I actually look much better than I am. Let me just see. Yes, but it's just much better imaging. So thank you, Aaron, for that. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Luke has cancer, so we've spoken a lot about that because we invest a lot about that. He's a member of the club. I'm very grateful for him talking about our investment club. And just a reminder, the podcast is to showcase people that are doing amazing things that are very authentic and not just bragging about how much money they have. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and I'll see you in our next episode. Yours in Wealthy, Alicia Castillo. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthy Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.